you can do is just tell the truth and trust in the American people that over time they're going to know what the truth is.
Yes, it is time for the truth. Right here, right now. This is the Conservative Syndicate. Real conservative talk from real conservatives. With your host, John Matthews.
The latter-day prophet.
Baying against the hypocrisies of our time.
And Joe Hakos.
You want answers. I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
The Conservative Syndicate is comprised of some of the most informed pundits and activists available today. Together, we seek to tear down the imaginary wall of separation between church and state through education, information, and engagement on the religion of politics and the politics of religion. And now, your host on the globally syndicated Conservative Syndicate, John Matthews and Joe Hakos.
And how are we doing out there all across this great land of ours and around the world? It is indeed time for the Conservative Syndicate. Coming to you live right now, coast to coast and around the world. Nationally acclaimed, globally syndicated, the Conservative Syndicate, the show that seeks to tear down the imaginary wall of separation between church and state. And we are so glad that you took the time to join us today. Got another bang-up show for you today. If you were listening to us last night, had a great show last night. We had on Karen Sigmund and Cindy Lucas, and had quite a discussion across the board as to what conservatism is and what it is not. And it's something that I've just kind of got in my craw. You know, it just sticks in my craw that we have so many people out there today, including many of the candidates seeking the Republican Party nomination for the election this year, who have little or no understanding of what conservatism represents, what it means, how it's supposed to look, or any combination thereof. So we took the time. We've been doing it actually off and on for quite a while now. But this week, we really kind of hunkered down and said, you know, we're going to really just try to bring it to light, bring the topic to light, and discuss and understand better what the ideology of conservatism is. There's a lot of different people that will describe it different ways, and it kind of sounds like Bernie Sanders when he's out there trying to describe democratic socialism. Well, it looks like this, or it's kind of like what they have in Finland or Sweden or whatever network, whatever country he's out there trying to promote or whatever. But it's really understanding the ideology of conservatism. If you don't understand the ideology, then all the talk about policies and agendas don't make any sense. The case in point is the fact that Donald Trump is leading the favorability polls right now throughout the nation. A man who has absolutely no conservative credentials, has never really been a conservative, has never claimed to be a conservative, still has not claimed to be a conservative. But people think that he's a conservative because he's got the loudest voice, or because he's saying some things that we all feel and believe. And he's hiding behind that mask, that facade. But people buy into it because they don't know how to read between the lines. And so that's what we've kind of been doing. We're going to do a little bit more of that today in a different vein, a different light. We have KrisAnne Hall from Liberty First coming on. She'll be on here after our first break here. And we're going to be talking to her, amongst other things. We're going to be talking to her about the situation up in Oregon that ended today. I guess the standoff pretty much ended today. And we're going to be talking to her about that. And she's been very involved with that. I understand that she was actually involved very much with the talking to of Brian Fry today and his surrender that brought the total number of people, all of them. I think it's 17 total because I think they arrested another person down in Arizona today also. And so she's very involved with that. But KrisAnne is what we call a constitutional expert. This girl knows the Constitution. She tours the country, 250 teachings a year throughout the country, traveling around trying to get people to understand what this Constitution is. Okay, so she's going to be on the first hour. And then Karen Sigmund will be back the second hour with us. Karen's pulled some heavy duty this week. This will be her third time on our show this week. And we're going to be talking about the issue of voter fraud. it came to light to me the idea here that, I guess what I'm saying is the situation in Iowa. The situation in Iowa really kind of threw me for a loop. You know, you remember that they had like 6 precincts, I believe it was. 6 precincts decided the outcome or the who won the delegates by coin tosses. I don't know why I keep wanting to say coin tosses. It's dyslexia, I guess. But my point being is that there were 6 precincts in Iowa that were determined by the toss of a coin. And the reason why it was decided that way, I guess, or the excuse or the reason we were given was because they were undermanned at the precincts. They didn't expect the voter turnouts. That's what they're saying. They didn't expect that many people to show up. And in doing so, I guess because everybody, kind of thought Hillary Clinton is the deal, and she's not going to need a whole lot of votes to win. I guess that was the thought. But Bernie Sanders showed up, and it changed the whole dynamic of the whole entire caucus. And so there's some stuff there that we really want to talk about and discuss, because voter fraud isn't just about fraudulent ballots and dead Democrats voting and this, that, and the other. I've located or I've identified some other stuff, some other areas in which voter fraud is playing a part in the electoral process. And a lot of it is coming from the media, believe it or not. The media has a hand in the voter fraud that's becoming epidemic across this country. So we're going to be talking about that. And let's see, what else? Well, whatever else comes up at that point. But anyway, so Chris Hall will be with us the first hour. I have some questions. I believe Tennessee was the 5th state today to pass a resolution for a constitutional convention. There's about 30 other states that are out there that have filed for resolutions or are working on the process. And since Chris Ann is such an expert on the Constitution, if we have time, we'll bring that up also. But I really wanted her to come on and talk about the situation up in Oregon. She was very active, literally active in this process that was going on up there, and was covering it to just an almost obsessive degree from what I'm hearing. So we're going to talk to her about what actually went down up there and what all this means now. I've heard some people saying, well, we finally got this dialogue back in the forefront about the government seizing land and doing things like that they're not supposed to be doing, the constitutionality of it. We'll talk to Chris and see if she can fill us in on some of that. So that's kind of what we have going on today. Joe Hakos, my co-host, will be off today. Got some problems with his back and not feeling good. I told him to take it easy, just lay still and be good. I'm sure he's probably listening to the show somehow. So our best out there to our good friend Joe, my co-host and partner in crime. And hopefully he'll be back real soon. Now, let's see, what else do I want to talk about here before we go to the break? We're going to go to a break here in just a couple minutes here. But this whole idea here of what was going to, I have to plead a lot of ignorance as to what was going on up in Oregon. I started following it early on, and then I kind of lost track because all the other stuff that was coming up. And pretty much when it got to a literal standoff, then I just kind of, in my, having to choose which battle to fight, it kind of dropped off my radar. But now we know that all the protesters, I believe, total 17 of them, 16 arrested in Oregon, 1 arrested in Arizona today. And we'll see how that goes. Cliven Bundy was also arrested, getting off the plane last night, apparently, had flown up there. And he's going to be arraigned on charges dealing with the standoff that took place out in Nevada here, I think, a little over a year ago. So I don't know if he's been hiding out or whatever, but they picked him up. And so this might just be a political football here that comes into play somewhere down the line here in this season. So anyway, having said that, we're going to go to a break here real quick. When we come back, we should have Chris Ann Hall with us from Liberty First. Stay with us right here at the Conservative Syndicate. Don't go. You can catch all our archives at theconservativesyndicate.net. The Conservative Syndicate. Real conservative talk from real conservatives.
When our water heater broke down last month, it was a nightmare. It took 5 hours for the plumber to show up, and he charged us a couple of $100 just to come out. Then it cost another $1,800 to put in the new water heater. By the time it was all said and done, I felt like I'd been taken. But what else could I do?
The smartest thing you can do is get a home warranty from American Residential Warranty. Their home warranties pay to repair or replace all your major appliances when they break, and they will break, and at the worst possible time. Call American Residential Warranty right now for free information on home warranties starting at just pennies a day. Don't wait for your refrigerator to stop running or your ceiling fans to stop turning. Call American Residential Warranty right now. Ask how you can save up to 50% on washer and dryer coverage. Just call 1-800-790-5960. That's 1-800-790-5960. Again, 1-800-790-5960. Call now.
Prices are for base buildings only. May not be available in some areas. Attention business owners, do you want a stimulus package that really works? Before you spend thousands of dollars more than you should on your next building project, listen to this. General Steel has a stimulus package designed to help you save as much as half the cost of conventional construction on your next building. As much as half. That's right. General Steel can save you thousands of dollars with a pre-engineered steel building designed for your business or church. How about a 50 by 100 foot building for under $30,000? So don't pay thousands more than you should without calling General Steel first and save as much as half the cost and time of conventional construction. With the projected demand for steel in Japan and China, prices may be skyrocketing.
877-927-3360. 877-927-3360. 877-927-3360.
Attention taxpayers. If you've received a notice from the IRS or state, do not ignore it. It's also a big mistake to try and handle your tax problem on your own. If you owe back taxes, it's a fact that the government has the power to take everything you own, including your home, business, wages, savings, and your freedom. But here's the good news. There's a special toll-free tax hotline set up especially for you. This tax hotline will tell you about new programs that are geared to help you dramatically settle, reduce, or eliminate what you owe. But you have to call now. Take down this number or put it in your cell phone. But call 866-761-0959. 1-866-761-0959. When you call, you get free information on how you can reduce or eliminate back taxes, including penalties and interest. You can also be helped if you have unfiled returns, a tax lien, wage garnishment, bank levy, or if you have been entered into a payment plan but can't make the payments. Don't make the big mistake in thinking you can ignore or handle your tax problem on your own. You can stop the collection process immediately. Call this special tax hotline today for free info at 1-866-761-0959. That's 1-866-761-0959. 1-866-761-0959.
Folks, if you're like me, you don't place a whole lot of trust in today's media for the real truth and facts regarding the volatile world of finance and politics. When I want the real scoop on money, I go to the most trusted source I know, my good friend and colleague, Bob Cardoso. Bob is a noted expert with a PhD in international finance who airs his nationally known, globally syndicated show, Robert Cardoso Live, daily, Monday through Friday from 4 to 6 p.m. Pacific Time. With Bob, you'll get the right information at the right time from someone who knows his business and can help you make the right decision concerning yours. Again, Bob airs daily, Monday through Friday from 4 to 6 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit his website at robertcardosolive.com for information regarding stations and topics. That's robertcardosolive.com. Check Bob out. You'll be glad you did.
Read something recently worth thinking about. It's the soldier, not the campus organizer, who's given us freedom to demonstrate. It's the soldier, not the reporter, who's given us freedom of the press. It's the soldier, not the poet, who's given us freedom of speech. It's the soldier who serves under the flag, who defends the protesters' right to burn the flag. Isn't it time now to demonstrate that we support our troops? Were it not for the brave, there'd be no land of the free.
Fred Thompson's message was brought to you by citizensunited.org.
Conservative Talk from Real Conservatives. I'm your host, John Matthews, along with my co-host, Joe Hakos, who's off tonight. He'll be back very soon, I hope. Just having some problems with his back, and shouldn't be sitting at a table when your back is bothering you that bad. So he should be back tomorrow or Monday. We want to give him enough time to recuperate. But right now, what we want to do, we've been trying to connect with Chris Ann Hall from Liberty First. We've been having some issues here. She's not hooking up right. I'm going to try to call her right now, so just bear with me here if you happen to hear ringing in the phone or whatever, and we'll see if we can get her online here with us and get our interview that's scheduled with her today going. And sometimes we have these problems. We're trying to connect through Skype, and sometimes Skype just has a mind of its own, you know what I mean? Hello, Chris?
Yes.
Ah, there you are. We were having some problems connecting earlier.
Oh, yeah, I kept calling.
Okay. Yeah, you were connecting, and then all of a sudden you were just dropping off. So I thought, okay, well, I'll give you... We were running commercials, so I had to wait for the commercials to run out. How are you doing?
I am doing fine.
Okay. Yeah, I know you're a busy woman. Yeah, you travel the country quite a bit here. I understand, 250 different stops last year?
Well, I teach 265 lessons. Sometimes I teach 3 a day, so that's
okay.
Okay, that's the difference.
Well, that's still a sizable number. You know, that says that's about the equivalent to maybe the number of shows that we do. Well, no, not close. Well, pretty close anyway. I want Joe's off tonight. He's got a problem with his back, and he's home laying in bed right now. So I wanted to start out our conversation tonight. He keeps telling me, he's kept sending me messages all day that you have some pretty tight information as to what was happening and what has conspired up in Oregon regarding the land up there, the refuge that the protesters were at. And I understand the last of those protesters surrendered today. And in addition to that, Cliven Bundy was actually arrested either this morning or last night when he got off an airplane up there.
Yeah, they didn't even let him get off the airplane.
Oh, okay. And so let's start with that. Why would they go after him if he was not one of the protesters?
They're bringing up charges against him stemming from 2014.
I'm sorry?
They're bringing up charges against him stemming from the stand that he took in 2014.
Oh, I get it. Oh, okay. Retroactive, huh?
Right, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
They've also arrested other people from 2014 as well today.
Okay. So can you... I have to be honest with you. I followed this pretty closely when it started out. But because of what we have to do here, I kind of have to pick my battles sometimes as to what we're going to talk about. And it kind of came to a standstill up there for a significant amount of time. So it kind of fell off my radar. So I was just wondering if you could bring my listeners up to date here as to what this is all about.
Okay, so yeah, we can do that for sure.
Well, you have the mic.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought we were on break.
Huh?
That's my bad. I didn't know we were on the air.
Okay, well, we're live right now.
I'm sorry. Yeah, right. I'm sorry. This has been the story of my day today, so you'll have to give me a little grace and mercy. So,
hey, this is live radio. This stuff happens, you know?
Yeah, right. Well, that's why it's live, right?
Yeah. It's not uncommon on this end either, so no problem.
Yeah, so what we're dealing with now is a situation where the farmers and the ranchers are feeling helpless and hopeless. They have been battling these land seizures from the federal government, by the federal government for decades now. We have people who've been fighting for 40 and 50 years with the federal government taking land from them, and taking land from them even most recently that has been in their possession for generations, and just simply redefining the terms of land and the land ownership of federal governments, and redefining boundaries based on a whim and arbitrary decisions of bureaucratic agents. And so what we're dealing with here is not really about one rancher or one farmer or one state. We're talking about an epidemic throughout the entire western half of the United States, because this is something. What we're seeing is the culmination of the frustrations of people who have been unable to have any real recourse. And I think people don't really understand the level of frustration and the cost. This is called cost these people. So not only is the federal government taking their land, they're seizing up ownership and they're seizing up access and telling them how they can and cannot use their land. They're adding restrictions. And if you're a farmer or a rancher who is battling with the EPA or the Bureau of Land Management and you want to fight this, I think most of America does not realize that you don't sue them. You don't sue them in a court like we think. The first step is that you have to file a grievance against them in an administrative law court, which is a court established by that agency with a judge that's paid by that agency who's to decide whether that agency is following its rules or not. Not about addressing the land ownership properties and the rights of the people, but whether the government is operating properly within its own designed limitations. And these kangaroo courts are absolutely bankrupting these farmers and ranchers. And of course, the government's got unlimited funds because they've been taking the fees from these farmers and ranchers and building up their coffers for these things for decades. And so what we're dealing with is people who have believed their whole life that they have been going through the proper procedure, and every single time just dealing with government and losing everything. And then, when the Supreme Court finally does get involved, or the courts finally get involved, then they redefine property in the eyes of the government, and they take land from the people as if it's just a light and transient thing, no big deal. And the people are feeling really, really helpless. And so what we're seeing now are the farmers and the ranchers saying, look, we've done everything that we can to do it within the rules. And now we have the Bureau of Land Management, who has recklessly burned land, engaging in these controlled burns that has actually caused the damage of property and the loss of livestock. And you put that juxtaposition, the fact that the Hammonds were doing a controlled burn, and nothing was damaged at all. No livestock lost. And now they're going to have to sit in prison for 5 years. I mean, this is totally a violation of every principle of the Fifth Amendment and a violation of every principle of the Eighth Amendment. You have you have Ammon Bundy, who was engaging in a peaceful protest. There were no shots fired by the protesters. There were no aggressive threats. And yet Ammon Bundy has been arrested on charges of just simply federal charges of obstructing a federal officer. And yet he has been given no bail, and he's being held in solitary confinement. I was involved in the criminal justice system for over a decade. I saw people who were accused of murder and child molestation get bail or not be placed in solitary confinement. And so this is a clear violation of our Fifth and Sixth and Eighth Amendments. And so I think what we're dealing here is with the people who want to be educated on what's happening, and they're getting educated, and they're beginning to see just how out of control our government has become.
Okay, now I would assume, just based on what you've told me so far, first of all, I would assume that the government might be using as justification for holding these people without bail. They probably are on the quote-unquote no-fly list or the terrorist watch list.
Well, yeah, I'm sure they are.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know, because they let Cliven Bundy fly. They just arrested him when the plane landed. So he actually got on the plane, so I don't think he was on a no-fly list. But you know that the government was accusing them to be terrorists.
Right.
They've not charged them with any terroristic charges. There's no charges of terrorism that I'm aware of.
Yeah,
but you're right. I believe that the judge ruled that they were a flight risk, and that's why that they could not have a bond. As if Ammon Bundy was going to flee the country when he's a man who is taking the stand to save his property. And even so, the no bail does not warrant placing the man in solitary confinement. That is cruel and unusual punishment.
Okay, because that was the first thought that popped in my mind. I mean, apparently, if you wear a burqa, it doesn't mean you don't make the list. But if you happen to wear a cowboy hat, you do. You know, it just seems like
right.
Now the other side of this thing, because now that what you're mentioning here, it kind of came up in one of the debates, the recent debate. I believe it was the last GOP debate where they had an exchange. I believe it was with Donald Trump and Ted Cruz, I believe it was, over eminent domain. Is this the basis for what the government is doing, saying we take this land and we seize this land under the auspice of eminent domain, or is it just to appease the environmental wackos that are out there?
Well, you know, it's interesting that you asked that question, because Governor Greg Abbott asked that question as well to the Bureau of Land Management when they're seizing thousands of acres from the people along the Red River. And the Bureau of Land Management, this was last year that he sent them a letter and asked that question. To this day, the Bureau of Land Management has never sent the governor of Texas the justification for seizing this land. And I guarantee you, when they finally come around to putting their heads together and trying to figure out an excuse, they're going to come up with, well, we need to keep this for public use. And it's a matter of national security to secure these lands, or something really ridiculous like that, as if the federal government is necessary to keep land for public use. Because you see, the state could have state parks and state reserves and state wildlife preserves. We don't need the federal government for these things. Right. And the bottom line is this: there is nothing in the Constitution that authorizes the federal government to own land in the form of wildlife preserves or national forests. The Constitution is very specific about the land, the property that the federal government is allowed to own. And there is nothing in the Constitution about wildlife preserves or national forests or even national monuments.
Yeah, I would think if the issue or the basis would be eminent domain, it would be perhaps at a state level or even at the county level. I know out here in California we've had situations where churches were to be built on land that had been purchased, and then all of a sudden the city council gets together and says, well, wait a minute, we can't let you have that land because we can't charge you taxes. There's no property tax. So what we're going to do is we're going to seize that land. We had a big issue out here with a church where they seized the land and said because of eminent domain, we want to put a Costco there instead because they pay property tax and it's better for the economy and everything else. It went through a 5-6 year lawsuit and finally was resolved by one of the people on the city council who owned the 23 acres next to the land that was at issue. The church had already bought and paid for the land and had sat on it for 10 years. And now that they were going to build on it, the city council came in and said, no, we can't allow that. And one of the city council members actually said, I'll tell you what, you let us have this land and I will give you the land that I have over here, because he knew that what was going on was not right. But it would seem like if we're going to argue the issue of eminent domain, it would be at a state or even a local level, whereas the federal government, you brought it up, I was wondering, what is the constitutionality of the federal government coming into a state and saying, we have the right to take this land?
There is no constitutionality of it. Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17 is the authority for the federal government to own property. It says they can own land for the state capital not to exceed 10 square miles, and the land that is necessary to operate forts and ports, and the buildings necessary to operate forts and ports at the consent of the state. So they can't even come in and seize that land for the authorized use of forts and ports. They have to have the permission of the state. And Article 4, Section 3, Clause 2 talks about territories and properties owned by the federal government. And territories are not land that is owned by the federal government. Otherwise, it would be lumped into that properties owned by the federal government. Territories are lands that the federal government holds in trust for the state. And Jefferson, in the first Land Bureau, made it clear that once the territory becomes organized, then the laws fall under the authority of the organized territory, and then once that territory becomes a state petitioning to the other states and he's admitted into the Union, Jefferson said very clearly that land is to never revert back to the federal government.
Okay.
And so what we have is a Supreme Court who has designated itself the ultimate arbiters of everything constitutional in the universe, and we have lost the understanding that the Supreme Court is part of the federal government. So we have no idea that we have part of the federal government defining the power of the whole federal government. The part is defining the whole, which means the whole is completely unlimited based on its own arbitrary decisions.
Yeah, it seems like something like the law with regarding the IRS. You have to get permission from the IRS to sue them. Okay, that's a great way to be able to do things if you're on the wrong side of the issue. But we got to go to a break right now. When we come back, we're going to continue our conversation here with Chris Ann Hall from Liberty First. We're talking about the federal government land grab up in Oregon and protest. The standoff, I guess, is over 40 days up there. The last of the protesters have surrendered today. And there's still a couple more questions here I wanted to ask Chris. So stay with us right here at the Conservative Syndicate. We'll be right back. You can catch all our archives at theconservativesyndicate.net. The Conservative Syndicate. Real conservative talk from real conservatives.
Limited time offer, 24-month commitment and credit qualification require cancellation fee, auto pay, and paperless billing, and other restrictions apply. If you can't see the difference, why pay the difference? Switch to Dish for the best deal in entertainment. Only Dish brings you the best in entertainment for less than $20 a month. Cut the cable and don't get directed. Switch to Dish because at just $19.99, Dish saves you every time you turn on the TV. It's so simple. The same channels cost less with Dish. So since you can't see the difference, don't pay the difference. Switch to Dish for the best deal in entertainment. Get premium movie channels free for 3 months, starting at just $19.99. Dish saves you every time you turn on the TV. Call now to save with Dish. Dial 1-800-600-1645. That's 1-800-600-1645. The same channels for less than $20 a month. Dish. Call 1-800-600-1645 for details.
Attention taxpayers. If you've received a notice from the IRS or state, do not ignore it. It's also a big mistake to try and handle your tax problem on your own. If you owe back taxes, it's a fact that the government has the power to take everything you own, including your home, business, wages, savings, and your freedom. But here's the good news. There's a special toll-free tax hotline set up especially for you. This tax hotline will tell you about new programs that are geared to help you dramatically settle, reduce, or eliminate what you owe. But you have to call now. Take down this number or put it in your cell phone. But call 866-761-0959. 1-866-761-0959. When you call, you get free information on how you can reduce or eliminate back taxes, including penalties and interest. You can also be helped if you have unfiled returns, a tax lien, wage garnishment, bank levy, or if you've been entered into a payment plan but can't make the payments. Don't make the big mistake in thinking you can ignore or handle your tax problem on your own. You can stop the collection process immediately. Call this special tax hotline today for free info at 1-866-761-0959. That's 1-866-761-0959. 1-866-761-0959.
Term life insurance. It can be a powerful way to protect your assets and your family. You work hard to earn and save your money to build a nest egg for the future. Don't let it get wiped out because you didn't plan ahead. Take the time now and make a small investment in $500,000 or more in quality term life insurance. Call the Term Lifeline and let us shop the best companies to give you the lowest rates. We specialize in policies of $500,000 and above. Ask about some of our 10 and 20-year fixed rate plans with guaranteed rates. Call the Term Lifeline right now for your free insurance quote. 800-870-3609. 800-870-3609. You owe it to yourself to protect your family and your assets. Make term life insurance part of that plan. Call the Term Lifeline right now. 800-870-3609. 800-870-3609.
Hey folks, if you're like me, you don't place a whole lot of trust in today's media for the real truth and facts regarding the volatile world of finance and politics. When I want the real scoop on money, I go to the most trusted source I know, my good friend and colleague, Bob Cardosa. Bob is a noted expert with a PhD in international finance who airs his nationally known, globally syndicated show, Robert Cardosa Live, daily, Monday through Friday from 4 to 6 p.m. Pacific Time. With Bob, you'll get the right information at the right time from someone who knows his business and can help you make the right decision concerning yours. Again, Bob airs daily, Monday through Friday from 4 to 6 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit his website at robertcardosalive.com for information regarding stations and topics. That's robertcardosalive.com. Check Bob out. You'll be glad you did.
Read something recently worth thinking about. It's the soldier, not the campus organizer, who's given us freedom to demonstrate. It's the soldier, not the reporter, who's given us freedom of the press. It's the soldier, not the poet, who's given us freedom of speech. It's the soldier who serves under the flag, who defends the protesters' right to burn the flag. Isn't it time now to demonstrate that we support our troops? Were it not for the brave, there'd be no land of the free.
Fred Thompson's message was brought to you by citizensunited.org.
Welcome back, and you are listening to the Conservative Syndicate, Real Conservative Talk from Real Conservatives. I'm your host, John Matthews, along with Joe Hakos, who's off today. And we have with us KrisAnne Hall from Liberty First. KrisAnne has been on the show several times with us. I'd really just love to get her back on a regular basis, but man, with 250 gigs a year, I don't know, that's a little bit difficult to do. But we grab her when we get our hands on her, and we're talking about the situation going on up in Oregon, which kind of came, I guess, to somewhat of a resolution today. I'm sure now we're going to be hearing about the court process and everything. But there were a couple of questions that I had people sending in to me, Chris, and I wanted to ask you. Has the Bureau of Land Management confiscated more land in recent years? I know a lot of this stuff they've had in their possession for quite a while. And if so, how much land has been seized? Do you know?
I do not know how much land has been seized, but we know that the federal government owns a greater percentage of the land than the states do.
Okay, but they are still confiscating. Am I right?
Yes, they are still confiscating. There are parts where they are expanding the ownership of land that they have already seized onto.
Okay, all right. Now, what happens when the federal government steps in and they take somebody's land? And I'm sure that there's some type of compensation that's being given to the people from which the land are being taken. But is it at fair property value? Is it estimated how much income the landowners might lose, or anything like that? On what basis are they compensated?
You know, they are different from all the situations because there are different aspects of land ownership that are involved here. Sometimes the takings are the lands that the people actually have possession of. Others are lands that the federal government believes that they own, and the people just lease from the federal government, so that they're taking back the leases or refusing to issue permits for them to graze and use the land. And the crazy thing is a lot of times that these permits are being issued to these people to graze on land that the farmers and the ranchers have had for generations. So it's a very convoluted thing and a very difficult thing to see. And so what we're seeing now is that they have bought out some of the ranchers and farmers. There are ranchers and farmers that are refusing to be bought out because the price is not right, or because this is the land that their family has owned forever, and this is the land that that they want to raise their families and keep in their generations, and they're refusing to sell out. And that's when they start getting attacked by the federal government with lawsuits and regulation compliance issues and stuff like that. We have there's an issue in Texas where the owner of the owner of the land passed away, and so before the heirs to that land could come in through the will and take the land, the federal government filed a right to have that land through probate. And so we're watching these things happen, and the bottom line is these farmers and ranchers are really at the mercy of the federal government because the federal government's got deep pockets. These farmers and ranchers rely on their land for their income, and when the federal government won't let them use their land to create income, they have no money to fight with. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars these farmers and ranchers are being forced to spend in courtrooms and just to keep the land that their family has known for generations.
Okay, now, in terms of when the federal government takes this land, and I'm curious, in particular, right now when we're talking about this land up in this refuge up in Oregon, has there been any reports that you know of in terms of natural resources like oil or something like that up there on the land?
We've heard reports of a large caches of natural resources and many of the pieces of property that the federal government is taking. And what we need to realize, this is not just Arizona, Oregon, and Texas. This is Idaho. This is California. This is Washington. This is Nevada. This is the whole western part of the United States. If you pull up a map on the internet and you sort of Google federal land ownership, you will be amazed how much land is consolidated in the West. I mean, you pull up this map, it's nearly the entire state of Nevada. It's nearly the entire state of Utah and Arizona, and it's just crazy how much land the federal government owns, and they're not even entitled to own it.
Wow, and especially, Nevada always rings a bell with me because that's Harry Reid's turf, and I know the situation with Cliven Bundy was found somewhere along the line here, was found out during that particular standoff that the land that they were talking about was something that Reid had been trying to negotiate some deal with some company over in China to take that land for their use, and then they were hiding under the tortoise. Oh, we need to protect the tortoise, and it was actually Reid was trying to negotiate some deal privately with a Chinese company. And I was just wondering if we had something like that going on up here with these people up in Oregon.
I don't know. The federal government claims ownership to 84.5% of Nevada, and they claim ownership of 53.1% of Oregon. And what we need to realize is that this is expanding, okay? Wow. They're expanding their borders. They claim ownership of 69.1% of Alaska. And what they're trying to do is expand that all the time.
What do they actually base their claim on? I mean, how does the federal government justify that?
Well, it's always a matter of necessity, isn't it? We have a need. We have a need to protect it. We have a need to preserve it. We have a need to something. But it's all an excuse. It's an unlawful excuse because it is a deviation from the authority granted by delegated by the Constitution.
But they never clearly spell out what that need is, do they?
No,
they just say, we've just said somebody in our bureaucracy has decided that we need this land, but we don't really need to tell you what we need it for.
Right, well, and that's exactly what Governor Greg Abbott did last year, sent a letter to the Bureau of Land Management demanding to know their justification for taking the land. And they sent him nothing. It's been crickets.
Okay. Well, who knows? Maybe they're building hangars for the Roswell dummies out there. It just boggles my mind that there hasn't been more of an outrage about this to begin with. I mean, this thing happened with Cliven Bundy a couple of years ago, and now we're sitting here with another instance going on here, and I'm wondering why I would have thought the last time that somebody would have said, "Hey, what are they taking this land for?" I mean, if it's just sitting there, there's got to be some ultimatum here. There's got to be some objective or some agenda that they're trying to work out here or trying to perpetrate. Are they going to build a new White House out here or something? I don't know, but it just seems weird that it's just happening just for the sake of happening. That's what boggles my mind. What's the end game? What do they gain by this?
And you know, I don't know that we'll know the answer to that question until we see it to its fruition. But I'm really hoping and praying that we can educate the people to the point where we don't have to find out why. Because the bottom line is that why is irrelevant.
Yeah.
The whole point is that they don't have the authority to have it. And so why they want it means nothing to me. I don't care. If somebody robs my house, I don't care why they robbed my house. I don't care why they want my stuff. They're stealing my stuff. They don't have the authority to do that. And the why becomes irrelevant once the stuff is gone.
Wow. Well, Chris Ann, we got to take another quick break here. This is a short break. And when we come back, I have one other topic here I wanted to ask you about and get your opinion on, because we had you on the show before about this. And that is Tennessee, I guess, became the fifth state to pass a resolution for a constitutional convention. And I wanted to get your take on that. Stay with us. We got Chris Ann Hall from Liberty First. And we'll be right back here at the Conservative Syndicate. Don't go.
You can catch all our archives at theconservativesyndicate.net. The Conservative Syndicate. Real conservative talk from real conservatives.
Term life insurance. It can be a powerful way to protect your assets and your family. You work hard to earn and save your money to build a nest egg for the future. Don't let it get wiped out because you didn't plan ahead. Take the time now and make a small investment in $500,000 or more in quality term life insurance. Call the Term Lifeline and let us shop the best companies to give you the lowest rates. We specialize in policies of $500,000 and above. Ask about some of our 10 and 20-year fixed rate plans with guaranteed rates. Call the Term Lifeline right now for your free insurance quote. 800-870-3609. 800-870-3609. You owe it to yourself to protect your family and your assets. Make term life insurance part of that plan. Call the Term Lifeline right now. 800-870-3609. 800-870-3609.
Hey folks, if you're like me, you don't place a whole lot of trust in today's media for the real truth and facts regarding the volatile world of finance and politics. When I want the real scoop on money, I go to the most trusted source I know, my good friend and colleague, Bob Cardoso. Bob is a noted expert with a PhD in international finance who airs his nationally known, globally syndicated show, Robert Cardoso Live, daily, Monday through Friday from 4 to 6 p.m. Pacific Time. With Bob, you'll get the right information at the right time from someone who knows his business and can help you make the right decision concerning yours. Again, Bob airs daily, Monday through Friday from 4 to 6 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit his website at robertcardosolive.com for information regarding stations and topics. That's robertcardosolive.com. Check Bob out. You'll be glad you did.
Hey, we're back. You are listening to the Conservative Syndicate, real conservative talk from real conservatives. I'm your host, John Matthews, along with Joe Hakos, my co-host from Dreyer Report. And we're talking with Chris Ann Hall from Liberty First, and giving us a very, I think, in-depth analysis of what's going on up in Oregon, actually what's going on all across the country here in terms of federal land grabs. And God knows why they need all this land, but maybe they have something going on. I don't know. Maybe we need a place to put all these new refugees that we're bringing in, and we'll put Section 8 housing up in these areas. I don't know. But on another note here, Chris Ann, Tennessee today became the fifth state to pass a resolution calling for Article 5 convention. And I believe we had you on the show once talking about that. It looks like Alabama, Alaska, Florida, and Georgia have all formally adopted this resolution. And there are about 33 other states that are actually looking at this. And I guess the intent behind it is to somehow come together and offer amendments that will further limit the federal government. I've always been under the belief that once you start adding things to things, then whether or not you're trying to limit it or not, you're actually expanding. Is that a thinking process that sounds tangible?
Well, Article 5 is a mechanism in the Constitution for us to amend the Constitution. And so if we have states that believe that amending the Constitution will fix the federal government and their defiance of the Constitution, then the states That's exactly what the state should be doing. The thing that we need to keep in mind with Article 5 is that this was something that our framers were really concerned about. They were concerned about a convention in the future because of the ramifications of amending the foundation of America, the supreme law of the land. And they had some really good discussions about it, and some things that we need to really take to heart. They had several primary concerns with holding a convention in the future. One of them was, who are you going to send as delegates? James Madison was very concerned about who would be the delegates at a future convention. And he states, and I'll paraphrase, he says that we are all here. We realize the only way we're able to have this convention that we have is because we just came from a bloody revolution. And it's the horrors that we saw that are keeping the delegates focused upon liberty and being able to put aside our personal ambitions and our greed and our political aspirations. He said, but I fear in the future, without that kind of motivation, the delegates of the future will be chosen of the same people who created the problem will be asked to fix the problem. And he said, and then it will boil down to nothing but a bunch of politicians who are battling for their own advancement. And so Madison was very concerned about how we chose the delegates and who we chose them to be. And I think that's a very, very, very valuable point to be made, because the best I can see, we're not very good in America at picking people who are constitutionally minded when we choose people to represent us.
Yeah, well, you would think, especially given one of the things that I've been harping on here for the past couple of months is the fact that I think the majority of our candidates in the primary race right now on both sides have a very, very short memory or no memory at all of what the Constitution is even about. I would question whether some of them even know the basics about the Constitution. But one of the things that, I'm thinking maybe we pick the delegates by coin toss. That works in Iowa.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, and we live in a political duopoly, which is a sort of hybrid monopoly, really, because there really is there's very little difference between the political parties in their establishments these days. And so, what the big concern is how do you take a convention and not let it devolve into a Republican versus Democrat battle, where they pick sides just like they do in Congress, and how do you keep it from becoming a political profiting mechanism as well? How do you put an end to it? So they get into power as delegates, and they find out, well, they can collect money from special interest groups, and look at all the media play I get, and look at all the power that I'm wielding. I have a fear that the thing will never end, because they'll find a way to use it to milk
I know
resources from the people.
I know one thing that one of my pet peeves is the election of senators. And if we wanted to repeal the 17th Amendment, would that also have to go through a constitutional convention?
Well, no, it would have to go through Article 5. Okay, so a convention is one of the mechanisms to repeal an amendment.
Okay.
But there are other ways through Article 5. Article 5 is the only way that you can amend the Constitution. But the convention is one of the ways within Article 5 to do that. The bottom line is no matter which way you go, you still have to have, by the time the amendment is passed, you have to have 3/4 of the state approve the amendment, because the convention doesn't ratify the amendment. The convention only proposes amendments, and then the amendment has to be ratified finally by the state.
Right. I got you there. Okay. Well, KrisAnne, we're out of time here. I wanted to give you a moment here to plug what you're doing, your website, and I know you have a radio show. So take a couple minutes here and let people know how they can find you.
Yes. My website is krisannehall.com, KrisAnnehall.com. And I'm on Facebook and I'm on Twitter, and I have a YouTube channel where we post videos every day. And I have, I'm always traveling and teaching, so my calendar is on there. I have books, I have videos, I have all kinds of resources that are available. And you mentioned I have the radio show. I also have a television show now, and everybody can find out how to see all those things by simply going to the website.
All right, my dear. I so appreciate you coming on, because I know how it takes you're one of the few people that I have to schedule weeks in advance to get. And I'm glad you take the time to come on the show and inform our people what's going on. And I have the utmost respect for what you do and how you do it. So I really appreciate you coming on.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
All right, my dear. God bless you, and we'll talk to you next time we talk to you.
All right, thank you.
All right, goodbye. Bye-bye. Okay, guys, we're coming up on the end of the hour here. I hope you got something out of that. I'm just it's one of these things, it seems like there's just this ongoing list of things to do, things that we look at or we listen to or we hear, and it hits our ear, and we're like, well, where did that come from? Where did that come from? How long has that been going on? And why is it going on? That kind of stuff. And this is really what's missing in the everyday American life today. And this is why we have the John Gruber theorem, which is that the lack of transparency is a political advantage, and it's because of the stupidity of the American voter. They're not paying attention, or they're not concerned. We're all out there trying to make our own living. We're taking care of our families. We're doing what we have to do, and assuming that the people that we elect are doing what we've elected them to do. And here we find ourselves, the crux of an implosion. This must have been what the Roman Empire felt like when it was started to fall apart. People sitting around going, well, wait a minute, that's not the way it used to be. That's not what works. It didn't work in the past. Why are we doing this now? And that's the whole crux of what we've been talking about in terms of conservatism. Conservatism advocates change, but very gradually and only when necessary, not radicalization, fundamental transformation of the United States, rebuilding the middle class, all the mantras that come from the left. That is not what a republic is about. That's not how it operates. It's not how conservatism operates. And that's why we've been branded as the Neanderthals, the political Neanderthals. We don't have a clue what's going on, and we just need to catch up with everybody else. And as we progress more and more towards a democracy, which is nothing more than a legitimized rule by the mob, it becomes very dangerous that we see these things happening. And now all these other little things are popping up. Land grabs by federal. What in the world does the government need all this land for? They're not building on it. They're not doing anything with it. What do you do? Are you gonna evict everybody else, or what? How does all this work? There's an end game here somewhere that we probably don't even know about, and so this is why we just keep telling you out there, hey, pay attention to what's going on. Start getting involved. Yeah, it takes time, and yeah, politics is dirty, and yeah, it's messy, and it's vulgar, and everything else. But the only reason it's messy, vulgar, and takes so much time is because we've ignored it for so long. Now it's like, are we noticing it enough to be able to reverse this? Or are we just paddling upstream against a tide that's just going to take us over the waterfall? I don't know. But I just know this guy is going to continue to try to fight for what he believes in, and I hope you're with me here. It's top of the hour here. Time for the Edwards Notebook, and then we'll pay some bills. We'll come back. Karen Sigmund from Rage Against the Media will be with us the second hour, so stay with us right here at the Conservative Syndicate. Don't go.
For years, various Muslim armies have been foolishly built or rebuilt at U.S. taxpayer expense. Remember the Iraqi army that was supposedly trained and equipped by U.S. military personnel? Hello, I'm Ron Edwards. When the ISIS Muslim terrorists went on their rampage throughout Iraq, the Iraqi soldiers trained by U.S. military personnel took off running like scared little rabbits. In Afghanistan, Muslim personnel trained by U.S. instructors have proven to be nothing more than well-trained but useless soldiers in the fight against the Muslim enemies of liberty. At one time or another, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, Iran, Iraq, Yemen, even Sudan have either directly or indirectly
benefited from U.S. military know-how and or equipment. With the exception of the brave Kurdish warriors, Muslim nations have proven to be a waste of U.S. time and taxpayer money with no worthwhile return on the investment. In fact, the idea of training Muslims to fight other Muslims is one of monumental stupidity, with the only exception being the pro-Western Kurds. Other than the Kurds, Muslims have no desire to get along with the infidels. Their long-term goal is to convert them, enslave them, rape them, or kill them. Wake up, America. I'm Ron Edwards.
Catch all our archives at theconservativesyndicate.net. The Conservative Syndicate. Real conservative talk from real conservatives.
When our water heater broke down last month, it was a nightmare. It took 5 hours for the plumber to show up, and he charged us a couple of $100 just to come out. Then it cost another $1,800 to put in the new water heater. By the time it was all said and done, I felt like I'd been taken. But what else could I do?
The smartest thing you can do is get a home warranty from American Residential Warranty. Their home warranties pay to repair or replace all your major appliances when they break, and they will break, and at the worst possible time. Call American Residential Warranty right now for free information on home warranties starting at just pennies a day. Don't wait for your refrigerator to stop running or your ceiling fans to stop turning. Call American Residential Warranty right now. Ask how you can save up to 50% on washer and dryer coverage. Just call 1-800-790-5960. That's 1-800-790-5960. Again, 1-800-790-5960. Call now.
Prices are for base buildings only. May not be available in some areas. Attention business owners, do you want a stimulus package that really works? Before you spend thousands of dollars more than you should on your next building project, listen to this. General Steel has a stimulus package designed to help you save as much as half the cost of conventional construction on your next building. As much as half. That's right. General Steel can save you thousands of dollars with a pre-engineered steel building designed for your business or church. How about a 50 by 100 foot building for under $30,000? So don't pay thousands more than you should without calling General Steel first and save as much as half the cost and time of conventional construction. With the projected demand for steel in Japan and China, prices may be skyrocketing.
877-927-3360. 877-927-3360. 877-927-3360.
Folks, if you're like me, you don't place a whole lot of trust in today's media for the real truth and facts regarding the volatile world of finance and politics. When I want the real scoop on money, I go to the most trusted source I know, my good friend and colleague, Bob Cardoso. Bob is a noted expert with a PhD in international finance who airs his nationally known, globally syndicated show, Robert Cardoso Live, daily, Monday through Friday from 4 to 6 p.m. Pacific Time. With Bob, you'll get the right information at the right time from someone who knows his business and can help you make the right decision concerning yours. Again, Bob airs daily, Monday through Friday from 4 to 6 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit his website at robertcardosolive.com for information regarding stations and topics. That's robertcardosolive.com. Check Bob out. You'll be glad you did.
Hey, all you can do is just tell the truth and trust in the American people that over time they're going to know what the truth is.
Yes, it is time for the truth. Right here, right now. This is the Conservative Syndicate. Real conservative talk from real conservatives. With your host, John Matthews.
The latter-day prophet.
Vying against the hypocrisies of our time.
And Joe Hakos.
You want answers. I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
The Conservative Syndicate is comprised of some of the most informed pundits and activists available today. Together, we seek to tear down the imaginary wall, a separation between church and state through education, information, and engagement on the religion of politics and the politics of religion. And now, your host on the globally syndicated Conservative Syndicate, John Matthews and Joe Hakos.
And we're back, and you are listening to the Conservative Syndicate, Hour 2, coming to you live right now, coast to coast and around the world, globally syndicated, nationally acclaimed, the Conservative Syndicate. We're glad you took the time to join us today, and I hope you got something out of that interview with KrisAnne Hall from Liberty First. And I love bringing KrisAnne on. She just does a knockout job every time we've had an interview with her. Knows her answers. You notice she never hesitates. You ask her something and she's got it, and she nails it. So hope you enjoyed that. And much more important, I hope you got something out of it, something you can use, something that will help you expand your understanding of what conservatism is and how it is put into practice. And that's one of the things lacking today, is that nobody knows how to do conservatism. Everybody can give you some watered-down version as to what it's supposed to look like. Very few can actually tell you how it looks and give you examples of how conservatism operates. And so this situation going up in Oregon, and I'm wondering where it's going to surface next. It was 2014 while we were dealing with Cliven Bundy out in Nevada. One of the guys, I guess, arrested last night as he didn't get off the plane, from what KrisAnne told us. And I don't know, where is it going to happen next? Where is it going to come up next? Well, it's got to be out here in the West Coast somewhere, because apparently that's where most of the land is being seized by federal government. Anyway, now I wanted to. What we're going to do this hour, we got Kieran Sigmund coming up shortly after our first break here. We're in our short segment right now, so I just want to kind of give you an idea where I'm going to go from this point on in the show. The other night, the Iowa caucus, and we came in, and the results from the Iowa caucus came in the following day. And one of the things that we noticed, or was being reported, was the fact that there were 5 or 6, I believe 6 precincts in Iowa that had some problems with tabulating the results. And it had to do particularly with, in one precinct, apparently nobody really counting the number of delegates. And we found out later that what it was is that there was nobody there that had been given the official capacity to count the delegates. And so what ended up happening in that precinct and 5 of the other precincts is that the decision was made to toss coins, with the winner determining who was going to get what number of delegates. And suspiciously, Hillary Clinton won all 6 coin tosses. And so right away there was all this accusations coming out. The Sanders camp came out and said, this is bad, there's voter fraud, there's something going on here. We want things recounted. Now, on the other side of the aisle, Ted Cruz Donald Trump was out there claiming that Ted Cruz took the caucus by, what's the word I'm thinking of here? Shenanigans, by putting out a flyer that said something to the effect that Ben Carson was withdrawing from the race. And the belief was that by doing that, people that voted for Ben Carson or were going to vote for Ben Carson would swing their votes into the Cruz camp. And so Trump wanted a do-over. He wanted to do the whole thing over because he was so upset about the fact that he didn't finish first. And so it kind of stuck in my craw a little bit. The coin toss really stuck in my craw. I'm thinking, what are the odds of 6 coin tosses and one person winning all 6 coin tosses? And I thought, that just doesn't feel right. There's something not right there. Well, lo and behold, but I let it slide. I let it kind of ride. But lo and behold, here we have the New Hampshire primary come up. And one of the things, we were on the air as the polls were closing in New Hampshire. We were halfway through our show. We were going into the second hour. And by the time we got off the air, they were only reporting. In fact, I think before we even got off the air, there was 7 to 8% of the precincts had reported in. And the elections were already being called in Sanders and Trump's favor. And if you were listening to the show on that day, we both got kind of animated about it. It's like, how can you be calling the election so early when you've still got 93% of the votes uncounted? And we were getting reports that a precinct in Merrimack had a 2-mile line of cars just trying to get into the parking lot to vote. And this was after the closing times. So we were kind of like, how can you do this? How can you just call these things so easily? Now, the calls were correct, apparently, but the point being is that did that contribute, or would something like that contribute to minimizing or taking away, disenfranchising voters who took the time to go out in the snow and the bad weather to vote and found themselves not being counted? And so I started putting this in a bigger picture, and I'm going, you know what? This is a type of voter fraud. And so this idea of voter fraud popped up in my head, and it's just been eating at me. So that's what we're going to do. We got to go to a break right now because it's our short segment. But when we come back, we're going to talk about these various aspects of voter fraud that everybody on the left keeps telling us doesn't exist. Of course, except for Iowa, where Bernie Sanders got upset because he thought there was some fraud going on. But anyway, we're going to talk about this because there's some elements to voter fraud. And I'm going to try and put this in a big picture so that you can see voter fraud has to be happening to some degree. And in tight elections like we've had over the past few cycles, they can make all the difference in the world. So we'll talk about it when we get back. Right now, time for a break. Stay with us right here at the Conservative Syndicate. Don't go away.
You can catch all our archives at theconservativesyndicate.net. The Conservative Syndicate. Real conservative talk from real conservatives.
Limited time offer, 24-month commitment and credit qualification require cancellation fee, auto pay, and paperless billing, and other restrictions apply. If you can't see the difference, why pay the difference? Switch to Dish for the best deal in entertainment. Only Dish brings you the best in entertainment for less than $20 a month. Cut the cable and don't get directed. Switch to Dish because at just $19.99, Dish saves you every time you turn on the TV. It's so simple. The same channels cost less with Dish. So since you can't see the difference, don't pay the difference. Switch to Dish for the best deal in entertainment. Get premium movie channels free for 3 months, starting at just $19.99. Dish saves you every time you turn on the TV. Call now to save with Dish. Dial 1-800-600-1645. That's 1-800-600-1645. The same channels for less than $20 a month. Dish. Call 1-800-600-1645 for details.
Attention taxpayers! If you've received a notice from the IRS or state, do not ignore it. It's also a big mistake to try and handle your tax problem on your own. If you owe back taxes, it's a fact that the government has the power to take everything you own, including your home, business, wages, savings, and your freedom. But here's the good news. There's a special toll-free tax hotline set up especially for you. This tax hotline will tell you about new programs that are geared to help you dramatically settle, reduce, or eliminate what you owe. But you have to call now. Take down this number or put it in your cell phone. But call 866-761-0959. 1-866-761-0959. When you call, you get free information on how you can reduce or eliminate back taxes, including penalties and interest. You can also be helped if you have unfiled returns, a tax lien, wage garnishment, bank levy, or if you've been entered into a payment plan but can't make the payments. Don't make the big mistake in thinking you can ignore or handle your tax problem on your own. You can stop the collection process immediately. Call this special tax hotline today for free info at 1-866-761-0959. That's 1-866-761-0959. 1-866-761-0959.
Term life insurance. It can be a powerful way to protect your assets and your family. You work hard to earn and save your money to build a nest egg for the future. Don't let it get wiped out because you didn't plan ahead. Take the time now and make a small investment in $500,000 or more in quality term life insurance. Call the Term Lifeline and let us shop the best companies to give you the lowest rates. We specialize in policies of $500,000 and above. Ask about some of our 10 and 20-year fixed-rate plans with guaranteed rates. Call the Term Life line right now for your free insurance quote. 800-870-3609. 800-870-3609. You owe it to yourself to protect your family and your assets. Make Term Life insurance part of that plan. Call the Term Life line right now. 800-870-3609. 800-870-3609.
Hey, we're back, and you're listening to the Conservative Syndicate, real conservative talk from real conservatives, and we're glad to have you with us. And right now we have with us back again for not only an encore, but an encore. Our senior conservative panel member, contributor, Karen Sigmund from Rage Against the Media. How are you feeling? Did you get any writing done?
No, I didn't actually. But I got so much else done, including being on your show, which was a real treat.
Well, it's I am trying so hard to get my book finished by June. I want so bad for this book to get out there. It's called The Day the Music Died. And it's a manifesto of sorts on the demise of the American Republic through liberalism and apostasy in the church. And I'm just, it's just every time I get to going on it, and it takes me into 10 different avenues. And my problem is sorting it all out and putting it in an order so I just don't sound like some angry white guy.
Right.
That's just going off on these insidious rants about things, but in trying to put some logic and reason behind it. So, yeah, it's a challenge. It's definitely a challenge. I'm learning a lot about discipline when it comes to writing. So, anyway,
it's the part I haven't quite learned yet.
This thing with it came up the other night with me when the day after the Iowa caucus. And the reports that 6 of the precincts had decided to determine the number of delegates given to either Sanders or Clinton by coin toss. And then I found out that it was actually written into their procedure somewhere that this is how they would do it.
Yep.
And I thought, wow, who else but a liberal could think about that, think it that way, And but it kind of, I thought at first I was like, well, that's really weird that okay, you have coin tosses, but Clinton won all 6 of them.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm thinking, okay, well, maybe the devil resides in Iowa. I don't know. But I let it go. And then New Hampshire, the thing that got us was Joe and I were on the air the night of the New Hampshire when the polls closed. And at that time, they were reporting, I think, less than 7% of the precincts were in. And we were getting reports that there was a 2-mile line in one of the precincts, Merrimack Precinct, because they have a town of 25,000 people, only had one polling place. And so they had 2-mile-long line of cars just trying to get into the parking lot to vote, much less being able to get in to vote, and it was after 7 o'clock. So we were sitting here going, wow. And then right after that, CNN and the other major networks started calling the election. And I'm like, how can they do that with only 7% of the precincts reporting, and you've got people out there in the snow? And so all these things started doing what they do in my mind. They started fermenting, and I started thinking about this idea that, well, what good does it do to vote if everything is so predetermined and just and either by chance or just people calling it? And so I just started putting all these pieces together. And I started thinking, well, this is actually a type of voter fraud, to call an early election and actually disenfranchise voters who have taken the time to go out in freezing weather and snow, and now their vote isn't going to mean anything because the election's already been called. And so that really got me up in arms. And so I started looking out there at all these different types of voter fraud. And a couple of them I want to mention real quick, and we're not going to discuss them because they're the common fodder when we talk about voter fraud. But I saw some other aspects of this thing that I think contribute to the fraud, and a lot of it is actually the conduit by which it's being perpetrated is the media. And so that's when I thought of you. I said, oh, this would be a good topic for Karen, when we talk about that type of thing. So, I mean, did any of those thoughts go through your head as you were, digesting what was going on between these two primaries?
Well, as far as the media calling something, that the media is injected into the process to the extent that it is already is something that I find utterly infuriating. The power that they have to affect all of this is excessive. That it's major networks aiming for ratings who hold the debates. So the questions are designed not as much to elicit actual information, and we've all seen this, as to trap Republicans, goad one into attacking another, and so on. It's a ratings game. It's not an information game. And it's the liberal media, so the questions that they craft are all from a leftist stance. So there's that. They're already injected into the process. Then they're injected into the process at every step by who they decide to have on outside of the debate arena. And yeah, even-handed crap. That's complete crap. We all know it's crap. They have on who they think will bring the greater viewership, or else who's their favorite, or how much time do they give to Bernie Sanders, for example? Not a lot, right? Mm-hmm. So all of this, the extent to which they are injected in the political process is already a travesty. As far as calling elections, they don't call. My understanding is until a given precinct has closed, they don't give the results of that precinct. Calling it is a prediction, but I don't think that's the end. And whenever I hear them call it, I always think, for those of you who haven't gotten off your butts yet, if you're not happy with how it's going, now is the time. So for me, it's kind of a mixed thing. I don't think I would feel disenfranchised unless it were such a huge lead. And they don't call it unless it's a really huge lead. So, I don't like the extent generally that they're involved in the process. I do remember that with Iowa, their first prediction was that Martin O'Malley would come in third. And it was hard to argue with that one.
Yeah.
And they didn't call the Democrat one in Iowa because, as it turns out, they're still not completely sure.
Yeah.
That Trump had such a gigantic lead at a certain point. I think there's some statistical, if current trends continue, this won't change. If current trends are vastly different, and they're usually pretty good about saying we haven't heard from the cities yet, so this could change. So I'm less bothered by that than by the extent that they're in the entire process. Their fingers are mucking it up at every turn. And then about the coin flip, I mean, this is one of two things that I find so preposterous about the Democrat Party. We could talk about media calling things, but here you are, you've gone to vote and talk about being disenfranchised. Yeah. Everyone's disenfranchised. Why bother? I don't know why they don't just, go to wherever they're having a convention tomorrow and flip a coin, for heaven's sake. Yeah. Or best 2 out of 3, and we know where they would go. They would go to Hillary. Because the probability of 6 coins being tossed for any one candidate is a 1 in 64 chance. Not in 1 in 64 coin tosses. 1 in 64 times that you toss 6 coins will all 6 come up a certain way. The odds are
you think about
astronomically against it.
Yeah, let's go back to the coin toss just for a second here, because to me, this is what I mean about when the media injects themselves into the actual process. We have for weeks The media out there projecting that Hillary at one point was going to, we did this yesterday, I think, on the show. This time last year, she was predicted to take the Iowa caucus 61% to 30%. She was supposed to just if I can use the word, she was supposed to schlong Sanders, okay?
Yep.
Now, it turns out just the opposite. But here's the point. Because the predictions were so skewed towards Clinton, the excuse that we got for the 6 coin tosses was that the precincts were undermanned because they didn't think they were going to have that many people show up. That was the problem. That's what they were saying. We didn't have the, and then they did in one precinct. I believe it was, I forget what the name of the precinct was. They didn't even have a precinct captain there to tabulate the votes. And so what you had was people running around, and that's where the video surfaced of somebody calling it for Sanders, and nobody had actually counted the delegates yet. And so that's what the stuff that was kind of ignited the Sanders camp. Hey, wait a minute, there's something going on here. And so the media predicting that, okay, this is what's going to happen. It's going to be a walk away with Hillary Clinton or whatever. And so the Democrats make an adjustment and say, well, we're not going to put people out there because it would just be wasting our time. Turns out they got a record number of voters show up. And I think the numbers we saw was 170,000 Democrats showed up. And in 2012, they'd only had 25,000 people show up in Iowa for the Democrats.
My goodness.
Okay, and so because the media was saying this,
right,
they based their logistics on what the predictions are instead of preparing and saying, hey, we don't know who's going to show up, and we got to be prepared no matter what because we don't want to disenfranchise somebody. If this had been down in the South, what kind of ruckus do you think if the black communities down there had not been able to get to the polls, were standing in line in the polls and not able to vote?
Yep.
But because it's white middle America, there's no big deal was made about it.
Yep, they flip a coin and we all shut up and go home.
I had one comment. I remember they were interviewing people standing in line to get in this Merrimack, in this precinct. And one of the ladies said, it's very uncomfortable and it's very inconvenient. But when you consider that in most countries people aren't even allowed to vote, I think it's worth the effort. And yet, her vote didn't matter.
Right. And this is so extraordinary. The party of the people. We want everybody's voices to be heard. In fact, to such an extent that it's the evil Republicans getting in the way of your vote counting because we want voter ID. Right? This is the Democrat line. It's so unbelievable. And yet, as you say, they're white. It doesn't matter. Nobody's defending them. And if this had happened in the South, it would have been, all hell would have broken loose. But truly, these people in the snow, they go out and it doesn't matter. But it's funny when you were talking about the media having polls, and so the Democrat Party was unprepared. I thought, my first thought was, well, that's the media, not the party. And I thought, oh, Karen, you know so much better than that. That's exactly the same thing.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, they are. Strange bedfellows, that kind of thing. But that, this whole argument about the voter fraud and voter ID, that's the one thing that they like because the left can use that. Oh, the bad right wing haters and homophobes and the bigots and the racists don't want the black people to vote. That's what it's about. And yet, here we have both situations. One of the other situations, which we'll talk about in a little bit here, is in New Hampshire, where they had people, since it was an open primary, they had people going in and re-registering as Republicans so they could vote for Trump. Yep. And one of the people reporting there said the most common thing I'm hearing from the people operating the polls or the ballots, they're asking the people, after you vote, do you want to go back and re-sign up as an independent? Yep. So I'm sitting here and go, well, this whole open primary thing, which is, we'll talk about later, but that's another aspect of the system itself perpetrating fraud.
Not only that, but the Trump campaign itself has issued instructions to people on how exactly to do what you just said.
Yeah, and yet nobody seemed to think it was a big deal when Thad Cochran, schnockered McDaniels by doing that, by getting Democrats to come in and vote. Nobody said anything about the fact that Neil Kashkari out here in California, that's what caused Tim Donnelly to lose. Because the people decided they'd rather have Kashkari running against Brown than Donnelly. Because Donnelly would have been a real contest for Brown. He would have actually had the debate. He would have had to actually show up and do something. That kind of thing. So, hey, we got to go to a break here real quick, and we're going to come back and talk with Karen again about this, because I have several aspects outside of just general fraud that everybody talks about in terms of absentee ballots and everything. I just got a couple other things I want to throw out here. In my mind, it's the system perpetrating the very fraud that they say they're against, one way or the other. So stay with us right here at the Conservative Syndicate. We'll be right back.
Hello, humans. Time to open the brain and remove all that static cling. It's time to insert a dryer sheet. Well, 2016 is upon us, and America is in full-blown presidential election mode. And there is one thing that the media says is different this time around, that being Donald Trump. But is he really different? The billionaire real estate mogul from New York City, they say, is an outsider, not a politician. But is that really an apt description of the mouth that is roaring? I think not. While Donald Trump might not have been elected to public office, he certainly knows what it takes to be in public office. You don't just vote, you buy your public official, which he has stated quite proudly over and over at his overbooked campaign events. The mouth of New York City has gleefully told us of his exploits of being able to donate to political campaigns. He tells America that it's all part of doing business. Well, that may be, but it is who he has bought favors from that should be a point of contention with the base of the Republican Party, of which he is trying to garner the presidential nomination from during this primary election season. He has donated to such conservative Republican stalwarts like Hillary Clinton, Harry Reid in Nevada, Charlie Rangel of New York, and when that becomes too much effort, the Donald buys a committee such as the Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee. Oh, wait, did I say conservative causes and candidates? Oh, I'm sorry, but my memory serves me correctly. None of these great people and causes are even close to being conservatives. That is strange. Wow, to hear the New York City mouth now, you think he's been on the side of the Republican base for decades, when in reality, he's been actively fighting against Republican base for years. Makes one wonder what has changed. Has the base of the Republican Party changed? Does it believe that making deals with the likes of Nancy Pelosi, Harry Reid, and Charles Schumer is the way to make America great again?
Well, I think that I'm going to be able to get along with Pelosi. I think I'm going to be able to. I've always had a good relationship with Nancy Pelosi. I've never had a problem. Reid's going to be gone. I always had a decent relationship with Reid, although lately, obviously, I haven't been dealing with him, so they'll actually use my name as the ultimate, as the ultimate of the billionaires in terms of, people you don't want. But I always had a great relationship with Harry Reid. And frankly, if I weren't running for office, I'd be able to deal with her. I'd be able to deal with Reid. I'd be able to deal with anybody. But I think I'd be able to get along very well with Nancy Pelosi and just about everybody. Hey, look, I think I'll be able to get along well with Schumer, Chuck Schumer. I was always very good with Schumer. I was close to Schumer in many ways.
I don't think so. While in 2010, 2012, and 2014, Republicans were overwhelmingly elected to go to their respective seats of office, many replacing Democratic officials. Donald Trump was buying influence and working against the base of the Republican Party. It would seem that the Trump money failed for the most part, as Republicans gained more legislative seats than in any time in modern history. Yet, there are those, despite claiming to be of the conservative persuasion, are full-throatedly supporting the mouth because he can win. The man has made this election about himself. Every twist and turn of his campaign is about him. He boycotts a debate because he said he was treated unfairly. He is going to get Mexico to pay for a border wall. He is going to make the Chinese trade fairly with America. Me, 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 me. Well, folks, listen up. This election isn't about Donald Trump or any of the candidates running for the presidency. This is about the people of Iowa, the people of New Hampshire. Most importantly, it's about you and me and your neighbor down the street and next door. This election is about all the people of the United States making deals, buying political hacks, and whining when some media type offends you, and then running down the street to use our nation's military veterans as props is not leadership. We have a self-absorbed narcissist in the White House now. Each and every day, I've heard conservative base of the Republican Party scream from the mountaintop that this nation is without leadership. Well, putting another self-absorbed narcissist named Donald Trump in the White House will not provide the leadership this nation so desperately desires. Are we so inept in reasoning that we will allow a man who has made no secret about who he is enter the White House and be allowed to operate the office of president in the same fashion as Barack Obama? But that would be okay because he has an R after his name? We can do better than this, America. We have to if we truly are to make America great again. Well, this dryer sheet is used up. Till next time, stay static free.
Read something recently worth thinking about. It's the soldier, not the campus organizer, who's given us freedom to demonstrate. It's the soldier, not the reporter, who's given us freedom of the press. It's the soldier, not the poet, who's given us freedom of speech. It's the soldier who serves under the flag, who defends the protesters' right to burn the flag. Isn't it time now to demonstrate that we support our troops? Were it not for the brave, there'd be no land of the free.
Fred Thompson's message was brought to you by citizensunited.org.
I'm your host, John Matthews. Joe Hakos is not with us today, taking care of a sore back. He'll be back with us tomorrow, I hope. If not, I'm sure next week. But we give him all the time that we need to take care of that issue there. He's got an ongoing problem with his back, and there's just some days it just doesn't work right, you know. That's what age does to you. There's just some days you get up and the parts just don't work right. And I've had more than my share lately in the last couple of years. It's like, well, you know, the other day, it was funny. I just share this real quick with you. I don't know, maybe too much information. But I was trying to put on my pants, and I was having a heck of a time getting the second leg to go into the leg because I couldn't raise my leg up high enough because I'm off balance. And the reason I'm off balance is because I'm like 100 pounds overweight. So it's like, and I finally had to sit down, and I'm sitting there, and my wife comes in because I'm yelling at myself. You know, I'm just, geez, what's the deal with you, man? You can't even pick up your leg. And she comes running in the room. What's the matter? What's the matter? Who are you talking to? And I'm like, yeah, well, I can't get my leg to go in the pants here. I can't get it up high enough to get, well, we'll lose that 100 pounds. Yeah, thanks. I needed that. Anyway, we're talking about voter fraud, and you know we have run the gamut so far. We have things, you know. First of all, the left is constantly telling us there is no such thing as voter fraud. I guess once you're an American, whether you're alive or dead, you still have the right to vote. And we've had instances of people voting in more than one state. I remember there was one of the candidates up in, I believe it was Maryland. Let me see. I think I got it here in my notes somewhere. A couple of instances with people running for office having to withdraw because they voted in more than one state. Who was it here? Matthew Brown. Wendy Rose, the Democrat challenger, the Republican representative, Andy Harris, in the 1st Congressional District, had to pull out of the election in Idaho because she had voted in more than one state. Then we had, who was it? It was somebody else here. There was another one up in Maryland. Was running for Congress or Senate, had to pull out because she voted not only in Maryland but in Florida. And her excuse was that she registered in Florida so she could help a friend. I guess vote for a friend that was running for office down there. So we've had that thing. We've had the absentee ballots. You remember in the 2012 election, I believe it was, where in Colorado, the people for Unruh, just Unruh, were down there going through the trash bins of Colorado University and some of the other universities, pulling absentee ballots of students that no longer were there, had graduated and moved on, or, pulled away from school, and they were filling the ballots out and mailing them in, and they got caught doing it. But no voter fraud. Everybody tried to play that down. It was no big deal. We've had cases of people actually literally trying to buy votes. Who was it in? I got Greg Stowers and 5 other Democrats in West Virginia were buying votes for booze. They would actually trade $20 a vote, handing it out to people that apparently didn't even know what the ballot was, probably because they were drunk, and it was actually buying votes and doing that, showing the people what to do when they went into the voting booth, how to do that kind of stuff. We saw all this stuff going on, and it's all been reported and it's all been downplayed. Well, given all that and pushing that all aside, to me, this idea of the media being injected into the process, and we were just talking about, of course, calling an early election.
Right.
I think that's a travesty. I think there should be some rule. You cannot say anything about the results in terms of who won until X number of hours after the polls have closed.
Yeah, well, I remember always in California in November. I mean, this is classic. Why bother? The whole rest of the country, right? By the time the Californians vote, the rest of the results are usually in.
Yeah, that it happens out here, does it not? Where you have people saying, "I didn't vote because by the time I got off work, we already knew who won."
What's the point? Exactly right. It really. I know that in your state they don't televise until your state is closed, but really, so what?
Yeah, we got a 3-hour time zone spread here.
Yep.
Now, I wanted to get your opinion on this, Karen, because in line with this, what is the big deal? What is the big deal about being the first network to call the election? That seems to be the driving force. They want to be
Yep.
What's the big deal about that?
It's always somehow about being the first, the scoop, the this, the that. I think it's ridiculous. And that's a constant ethics issue for networks and media generally. Do you spend a little time verifying it, not just calling an election, but generally speaking? Is it better to be the first to say something, whether or not it's true? Or is it better to wait a little bit and ensure your accuracy? This is a constant trade-off that all the media faces, but they seem less and less desirous of ensuring factuality, accuracy, and more desirous of being first.
Yeah, I don't know. Do you get to charge a higher advertising rate or something? I mean, like, what's the big deal? We want to be the first to say it. We want to be the first to say it.
Right, and you are the first. You do get to say breaking, and then others, according to CNN, that's what gets picked. According to CNN, this and this happened. But look what just happened with CNN's breaking story about Carson going home for a few days, right? The chaos that caused, doing a tweet that was ambiguous, that then got picked up and interpreted one way, and then seconds later they came out with a clarification, not a correction, but a clarification. But if you're following a Twitter feed and you just see this quick, he's going home and not to South Carolina instead of not straight to South Carolina, one word makes all the difference. So they were quick, they were inaccurate, and it caused a ripple effect of confusion at best. But they should check. Well, apparently they had checked. The Cruz campaign should have checked. They didn't check.
Yeah.
But it's always a matter of trying to be first with something. Cruz's campaign did the same thing. Jumped on the gun, wanted to jump on this hot off the presses information before the competition did. So,
I that's one of the things that recently really irritated me about Ted Cruz, jumping on that and taking it without vetting it or verifying it one way or the other. That I think that the criticism of that was very justified.
Yeah, I mean, for a brilliantly media-savvy campaign who knows to their core not to trust the media for anything, to jump on this and then blame CNN, it's like, hello?
Yeah.
Would you trust CNN on anything else?
Especially when it's on record that you're one of the best people to chastise the media.
Exactly. How much time would it have taken to check? But no, the rush was on, not just to get the information out, of course, but to persuade his people to come to Cruz. My take on this is whatever Cruz did may or may not have been wrong. But to say that he is the only one to have benefited by that really makes no sense to me at all.
And in some regards, it's probably sour grapes that somebody else didn't think of it first.
Well, there's that, yes. But also, I mean, really, if I were a Carson supporter because he's a non-politician, if I were told he's dropping out, I might actually turn to Trump.
Yeah.
If that's the criterion that's important to me, just because Cruz let me know and Cruz said, I hope you'll vote for Cruz, that's not what would decide me. I think Trump may well have benefited it at least as much as Cruz did.
I agree. And I think
consequences are impossible to say.
I think, we were talking yesterday about the one guy with some of the tweets that were going out during the New Hampshire primary. While we were on the air the first hour, we were just picking up tweets from different people that were reporting. And one of the funniest ones was the guy that showed up to vote for Trump and found out that he was a registered Democrat. And so he voted for Sanders instead.
That's really funny.
I'm thinking, there you go. This is one of those voters that tells us that they haven't voted or have not been voting, but they want Trump. And so they show up and find out they're not even registered in the right party.
Well, yeah, and I had heard that people going in New Hampshire, at least you're the person you're citing knew who he wanted to vote for. But I heard people literally going into the New Hampshire polling places, not only not knowing who they wanted to vote for, but also not even knowing which party they would align with.
Oh, I know. One of the
unbelievably irresponsible of people.
One of the reporters, Christopher Walker, I think his name was, for Yahoo, was reporting that at the poll he was at, 40% of the people that were showing up there were undecided, and they couldn't decide whether to vote for a liberal or a conservative.
They don't even know.
I'm like, you don't even know what you're voting for, much less who you're voting for.
Right.
Oh, my God. Karen, we got to do our short break here. We got a real short break coming up here, and then I want to get into the other aspect here, what I call voter fraud, and that is gerrymandering. This is something I think that the part of the political process that needs to be stopped. And we got hit hard with it out here in California, and it's been a big problem ever since. So stay with us. We'll be right back.
You can catch all our archives at theconservativesyndicate.net. The Conservative Syndicate. Real conservative talk from real conservatives.
Prices are for base buildings only. May not be available in some areas. Attention business owners, do you want a stimulus package that really works? Before you spend thousands of dollars more than you should on your next building project, listen to this. General Steel has a stimulus package designed to help you save as much as half the cost of conventional construction on your next building. As much as half. That's right. General Steel can save you thousands of dollars with a pre-engineered steel building designed for your business or church. How about a 50 by 100 foot building for under $30,000? So don't pay thousands thousands more than you should without calling General Steel first and save as much as half the cost and time of conventional construction. With the projected demand for steel in Japan and China, prices may be skyrocketing.
877-927-3360. 877-927-3360. 877-927-3360.
Hey folks, if you're like me, you don't place a whole lot of trust in today's media for the real truth and facts regarding the volatile world of finance and politics. When I want the real scoop on money, I go to the most trusted source I know, my good friend and colleague, Bob Cardoso. Bob is a noted expert with a PhD in international finance who airs his nationally known, globally syndicated show, Robert Cardoso Live, daily, Monday through Friday from 4 to 6 p.m. Pacific Time. With Bob, you'll get the right information at the right time from someone who knows his business and can help you make the right decision concerning yours. Again, Bob airs daily, Monday through Friday from 4 to 6 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit his website at robertcardosolive.com for information regarding stations and topics. That's robertcardosolive.com. Check Bob out. You'll be glad you did. John Matthews, along with Joe Hakos, my co-host, who's off today, and we wish Joe well. Hope he gets off his back here very shortly. I wanted to ask you, Karen, here real quick. This is really off the wall here, but I just sent Karen a message telling her what we were going to talk about in the time that we have left here, and she answered back to me, "Okie dokie." Okay, now I want to ask you this: you come from Rhode Island, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Well, sort of.
Yeah, because I noticed your English is different than mine. I spell okie dokie. Okie dokie. Okie dokie would be D-O-K-E-Y. And you put D-O-K-E. Now, the reason I asked that, I'm not making fun of you. It's just...
I lost the Y on it. I meant to have a Y.
Oh, okay. But I wanted to ask you this because I was stationed back in Pennsylvania.
Oh, no, I said okie doke. That's what I said, okie doke. Yep.
Yeah, okay, okie doke. Okay, so I say okie dokie and you say okie doke. Okay, yep. All right, there's a difference there. And I was stationed back in Pennsylvania for the better part of 3 years. And a lot of the people back there, of course, are more New England type people. You know, I was born in Connecticut, but I was raised out here in California. And anyway, I speak Irish slang anyhow. So anyway, do you say radiator or radiator?
Oh, it's a radiator, for heaven's sake.
Okay, so the people I knew back there always said radiator.
Well, I grew up in California, and then 30 years on the East Coast, so a lot of it didn't really take.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, radiator was one. There were a lot of weird regionalisms. The bubbler is the water fountain, and...
Okay.
But, yeah.
I was just curious. One lady I knew back in Pennsylvania, I was very close to their family, and she always commented to her people, she called it my intercontinental accent. Because I had certain phrases that I used from my mom, who was very, very heavy Irish. My dad was raised in Tennessee, so I learned how to say y'all. And so I could say, things like surf's up, y'all. And they would always make fun of me because, you don't talk like the rest of us. Well, that's your problem. I mean, you guys, in Pennsylvania, they drive with 2 feet. The gas pedal with the right and the brake with the left. I mean, how insane is that?
Is that a regional thing? That's because my mom used to do that, and I'm.
Well, that's the way they learned to drive back east.
Wow!
And it blew me away. Just blew me away. What do you do when you got a clutch?
Oh, and that's the surprising thing. She learned to drive with a clutch, so I don't know. I never understood that at all.
Well, I don't know. And it's like. My friends always use this slang, a couple of them from Jersey, they're like, let's go down to the Get a Beer down on 33rd Street, stuff like that. And I'm like, let's talk English around me, man, okay? Y'all. Anyway, back to our discussion here.
Yes.
Do you have any closing remarks here as far as open primaries? Because I believe that's voter fraud. I just think that in terms of that. It's voter fraud to me.
Well, it leaves situations rife for voter fraud. Yes, as does, which California also does, encouraging absentee balloting and voting by mail, whatever you want to call it
Right.
these days. It's not even absentee. California were encouraged to not bother to go down to precincts, but to do everything by mail, which is hugely vulnerable to fraud.
Yeah, that was
or put another way, which is a huge opportunity for Democrats, for anybody, but for Democrats, because that's how they go, to have play all kinds of games with ballots, and that's such a travesty.
Did you know that Colorado is mandated mail vote?
And that it'll be here next. It's unbelievable. And next will be, of course, online voting, which will be, I mean, that's just the end. Then there's no paper record of any kind.
Yeah.
It's done. It's over if that happens. We're already a step in that direction with electronic voting.
Yeah.
I think we had this in Rhode Island. Horrendous. While the whole Chad thing in Florida was ridiculous, at least you had the paper to go back to and count.
Yeah.
What happens when you don't? So yeah, I mean everything that the Democrats do to try to get more of us involved in the political process, in fact, disenfranchises more of us because it makes the entire process more vulnerable to fraud one way or another. Yes, open primaries. Yes, electronic voting. Yes, absentee ballots. To getting in the way of voter ID. If I go in and somebody's already voted for me, there's nothing I can do.
Yeah, it's amazing to me that we're allowing this, and it's all for convenience. And I'm like, if you don't have enough gumption to get up and show up at the polls, then you probably shouldn't be allowed to vote anyways.
It's not for convenience. It's for them to have control. This is, again, a problem in search of a solution. They want more ways of control, and they sell it as being more convenient. If you can't be bothered to get off your butt, then don't vote.
Yeah.
But now, it really is a matter of giving them yet another backdoor into being able to manipulate what goes on.
Let's change here because we only got a few minutes left. I want to gerrymandering. The idea that every 10 years we're supposed to adjust districts to account for or to make adjustments for certain demographics. It's not really the size as much as it is the demographics, because I guess if a city or a district falls into disarray and all of a sudden there's an influx of minorities because of the poverty level or whatever, I'm using that as an example because that's the reason gerrymandering was instituted, and we're sitting there saying, okay, to me, I don't know why we need to do that. Districts should be drawn based on the population or the average population of that city and only adjusted if the city itself changes in that number, but not to gear it or skew it towards a specific demographic. And that seems to be what's going on here with gerrymandering.
Yep. And it's another opportunity, really, that from my understanding is, and fair enough, if you're allowed to gerrymander, both sides duke it out on this one. And, it's sort of, in a way, it's sort of like picking a jury. Both sides are going to try to pick a jury that they think is more favorable to them. And if the whole notion of gerrymandering is to jigger districts in some way, then it would be foolish of the Republicans to let the Democrats do what they wanted all the time, and it would be foolish of the Democrats. I mean, this is more a turf battle,
right?
And
well, it's like if you have a major influx in one specific demographic, and we say, okay, now we divide that city into another district, and that's what's happened out here in California. That's why we can't get the balance back, because we've taken all these highly populated, dense areas and divided them, and then they're all skewed towards a specific demographic, and so now the Democrats have so many seats, and we can't do anything about it.
Right, exactly. All the high-density areas. If you look at maps of the 2012 election, for example, where obviously Obama won, but state by state, he didn't do very well. Yeah. Most of the country, actually, if you color in red those districts that went Republican and blue those districts that went Democrat, most of the country is red.
Yeah.
But the high demographic areas that where the people are, where the votes count, because there's so many, those were all blue. All the inner cities, where all the poverty is, where all the people with handouts are, those are blue. And funny how those are where they saw 107% of people voting.
Yeah.
Right?
I got to interrupt you, Karen. We are out of time. I've got about 20 seconds left here. I'll do the promo for you here. You want to find Karen's site, rageagainstthemedia.org, and make sure you check her site out. Once again, Karen, thanks for putting in the overtime this week.
My pleasure. Always terrific.
All right. God bless you, girl. We'll talk to you later. Okay, guys, we're done for the night, and we'll be back tomorrow and with more good stuff for you. And God bless you all. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you tomorrow night. Thanks for tuning in to this edition of the Conservative Syndicate, the globally syndicated, politically incorrect talk show that seeks to tear down the imaginary wall of separation between church and state. We want to make you aware you can find and access all of our show archives at our website, theconservativesyndicate.net, as well as our broadcast stations and times. That's the conservativesyndicate.net. We so appreciate you taking time to tune in, and we so look forward to continuing to bring you the best and uncompromised talk radio available on the net today. And remember, folks, it doesn't matter how many times you get knocked down in life. It only matters how many times you get up. I'm John Matthews, signing off until next time, right here on the Conservative Syndicate. God bless you, and may God continue to bless America.